Let's check in with Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine.
Indeed. I'm going to go for a run right now in the sunshine under peaceful skies, and we'll see what happens.
Hopefully nothing. Thank you, Joe. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Joe. Little fucking Joe Lindsley.
Joe Lindsley is quickly becoming an American treasure in broadcasting.
Welcome to Ukraine Bank.
In Russia, this is State of the Union address day for Mr. Putin. I'm sure Joseph Lindsley has a few thoughts on that. Let's go to Ukraine right now and check in with Joe. How are you today, Joseph?
Bob, good afternoon from Kiev. Sunny day. And there's the news we have this morning that Ukrainians have destroyed 3 more of the Russian Su-34 fighter jets. And if this is all indeed true, it's extraordinary because that means in the past 11 days, Ukrainians have destroyed 13 Russian planes, including fighter jets and the A-50 plane that can be used to launch and control operations. This is pretty extraordinary. The success Ukrainians are having. And so there's a good energetic feeling about that. Meanwhile, here, in Kiev, I spent so much of January and February in Kharkiv, where you have to deal with the possibility of missile attacks at any moment. And it's a very different feeling to be here in Kiev, where, those attacks are much less frequent. And when they do happen, you have a pretty good sense that, the city's pretty well protected by the Patriot missiles and other air defense. And I was talking with some friends here about this yesterday. It's hard to remember sometimes in these moments of seeming calm, as you see the city, people going about their lives, that even the moments of calm are a strategic move. The Kremlin and Russia has made it clear the goal is the destruction of Ukraine as a society, the capture of Kiev still, and perhaps we'll hear some of that in Putin's remarks today. But they've never been shy about saying that. And so it's a chilling thing to consider that even in these moments of calm, there are people in the Kremlin every moment working for the destruction of this country. And so there's never really, even if it seems calm, and this is what everyone here is saying, you have to keep reminding yourselves that, you must stay focused and fit and doing everything you can to work for victory because really there's no calm. There's always, the fighting at the front lines. There's always places, especially frontline cities, getting attacked, and there's always someone preparing for your destruction. And we had, speaking of continued destruction, the Russians yesterday in Kharkiv region, a little city called Kupiansk, which I was nearby recently, they attacked, and they've been attacking that city frequently. And it really is some of the most intense fighting is in that vicinity. And the Russians hit a church and a cafe. And among the victims was a Ukrainian priest. I think he was an evangelical pastor, and he was murdered. He was killed by the Russian attack. And this is another story that hasn't been told very often. And there's a strange narrative that the Russians have pushed about religion and trying to make themselves seem like the great defenders of orthodoxy and of religion. And in fact, it's Russia that is attacking Christians throughout Ukraine. Not just because Ukraine is one of the most Christian countries in Europe where people actually go to church. So, de facto, Russia is attacking a Christian society, but they're literally targeting, especially Protestant churches in occupied places. In the city of Melitopol, which has been occupied for almost 2 years now, down in southern Ukraine, the Russians have, and I was speaking with pastors from there who are now in exile, the Russians have either destroyed or occupied every single Protestant or evangelical church. Some of them they've just bombed to smithereens, and others they make into Russian cultural centers, and they replace the crosses with Russian flags. And in fact, an American who's here doing a lot of good work, Stephen Moore, has a video interviewing people who escaped from there, and you can see footage of what the Russians have done to these evangelical churches because they hate anything that they can't totally control. And so they hate independent thinkers. They hate religions that are not theirs. And if you go to our website, UkrainianFreedomNews.com, you can see on the top left, you can watch this haunting video of how the Russians have been attacking Christians. And something that continued again yesterday with the death of that pastor, Pastor Klimko, age 58, who died in his church.
Joe, do you think the Russians are having a problem getting more soldiers to fight? I was reading about a member of the Ukrainian parliament who has studied this issue, and he estimates between 1,500 and 3,000 Cubans have enlisted in the Russian attack on Ukraine, and they're offering something like $2,000 salary, which of course is a lot better than what they get in Cuba, where the average monthly wage is less than $20. So they're getting $2,000 a month for fighting there. What are you hearing about that? Anything?
Yeah, we've heard a smattering of such stories. A couple of days ago, I think it was guys from India. I'm not sure, but there was who were approached. They were working in the Middle East, so I think they were from India, and they saw some advertisements online for, come work in Russia. We'll pay you good money. But it didn't say what the work was. And when they got to Russia, the work was, you're in the army. And it was very difficult for them to get out of there. I'm pretty sure they were Indian. So we have seen this. And I just saw a video, which I can't share, of friends who were at the front line, Ukrainians, and they captured, they were in a fight, and then the Russians surrendered. And it looks like what they captured included many non-Russians. And so, yeah, perhaps, this is, part of what they're doing. We know Russia has sent prisoners, everything they can, but they have tons and tons, they have access to people. I think that's because they don't value human life, perhaps, certainly as much. I think personnel is not a problem. And this is it's always, everything's sort of on a spectrum, right? Ukrainians are having victories and there are successes, but then there's always the possibility of something, of greater loss happening. And we can talk about, we talked about before about the headlines that say beleaguered Ukraine or war-torn Ukraine, but you could also say defiant Ukraine. And it's always sort of a dance between these two ideas because we are in this in-between. Every moment is a battle. Yesterday at the European Parliament, Alexei Navalny's widow, and by the way, Ukrainians, they never liked Navalny. They don't trust anything about him, even in death. And his widow was speaking at the European Parliament, and she said she was saying she was one of the first times she's actually mentioned Ukraine, by the way. And she said nothing is working. She said the whole world, came to Ukraine's aid, but 2 years have passed. There's much exhaustion. Everything has already been used, and nothing is working. And now, that's maybe the narrative of someone who is giving up, who's a victim, which maybe is the Russian mindset. But that's not true. Everything has not been used. The fact that the United States and others introduced 500 new sanctions on Russia after the death of Navalny, 500 tells us that, why didn't they do those before? When Christian churches were being blown up or, kids are being killed in their beds and cities are invaded, why? So clearly not everything has been used. We know that there's plenty of long-range weapons and fighter jets that have not been sent. And yet things are working. Yet Ukraine, this winter, the winter's almost over, had electricity and power and heat, unlike last year. The Black Sea corridor, Ukrainians are, delivering more grain through their hard work and through military efforts than they did when they had the treaty with Russia and the United Nations. So that's working. And we see that, all these jets that are, it's sort of mysterious for everyone. It is kind of bizarre. All these jets that are getting shot down these past weeks, 3 just this morning and 13 in 11 days, it's putting a smile on people's face, not making people complacent, I'd say, but some things are working. And if you can say both of those things at once, like, okay, there's more that needs to be done, but some things are working, just start to do more. That's I think the message from everyone here.
Joseph Lindsley in Ukraine. Joe, I hope you get a peaceful break on your sunny day there in one of those Kiev cafes you tell us about.
Indeed. I'm going to go for a run right now in the sunshine under peaceful skies, and we'll see what happens.
Hopefully nothing. Thank you, Joe. We'll talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people